Well, Kim, Dennis, Stephanie, and all the family and friends here, it's not easy being here, but I do want to welcome you here. On behalf of Schmidt Funeral Home, we're honored to be here. There's so much love and respect here for Dennis, your family, and I'm glad that the family and the friends that are here can be here to support and show their love for all of you. And I know that Dennis was a very proud American, a husband of almost 25 years, a dad, an amazing dad, and quite an uncle, and a very interesting person. Before the opening prayer, I'd just like to share one little thing that I really like about the obituary, and then I'll read the obituary later. By the way, who wrote the obituary? Did they write it here at Schmidt Funeral Home, or did one of you kind of write it? I just want to point out one thing, Kim and Stephanie and Dennis. The neat thing I like about the obituary, it talks about how Dennis had a proud IQ of 152, and then to verify his IQ and his intelligence, the very next sentence says, he married the love of his life, Kimberly. So he obviously was very smart, wasn't he? Absolutely. Well, again, welcome, and I just want to remind you that God is here too. Somehow we don't understand, but I know He cares, and just like to start with prayer, okay? Dear God, today, just want to say thank you. Thank you for Dennis, for making him amazing, giving him such intelligence, such organizational skills, for giving him the ability to do all that he did in his work, in his life, and for blessing him with a great wife, 2 amazing kids, and all his family and friends here. Just take care of Dennis, and take care of Kim, her kids, and everyone here today, we pray. Amen. Well, from what I've heard, the rumors are true. Not another person in the universe like Dennis, huh? Definitely a character. And those that I talked to, they had some very interesting things to say. Kenny in particular, who was a friend, known your husband for 30 years, worked with him, but knew him for the long haul. Having known him 30 years ago, he knew the little more, not quite as refined from all of Kimberly's work version. His hair was a tad longer than you see right here, maybe a lot longer. And he needed a little polishing, didn't he? But he said, you know what, Kimberly got the job done. Not only that, Dennis, I understand too, had a little bit of an introverted side. Not totally. He could tell you straight. He wasn't that shy. And I'm sure Dennis and Stephanie, it was kind of hard to get away with stuff with someone like your dad that was so detail-oriented, so on top of everything. But anyway, when he met you at that apartment, it took him a little while to warm up and, get your attention. But I bet you when he first met you, he was saying, this is a sweet deal here. I'm going to figure this one out. But it took a while to build up steam, and I'm so glad that he showed up at your mom's house. He must have figured out that, he might want to cut his hair a bit, and he did that. He was very smart and strategic, wasn't he? Because when he showed up at your house, didn't he have his hair all cut and looking good, clean cut? You may need some of those strategies in the future, Dennis. But you already did it. Look at this guy. Isn't he awesome? Handsome. Wouldn't you agree? And a very beautiful daughter. Very special. And I know your dad meant everything to you as kids. And you're just way too young. 22 and 24. That's way too young to have to say goodbye to your precious dad. And 60 is way too young. Dennis had a whole lot more life in him, didn't he? And we just don't understand this cancer stuff. It makes no sense. But one thing Amber and others have told me is that, Kimberly, you absolutely get an A in your kids for taking care of Dennis. And we certainly want you to know that, and I wanted to say that publicly, that it's not easy taking care of someone in your home. When you gave him the option, to stay at a nice facility, it was very easy for him to say, I want to be home. So this last year and a half has been day in and day out. You probably haven't hardly even left much. Focused, taking care of your precious husband. And I know he really wanted to make it to December 22nd. December 22nd would have been your silver wedding anniversary. Came very close, and as you told me, Kimberly, he kept asking, what's today? You know, if you said Wednesday or whatever, he wanted to know the date. It's December 2nd or December 5th. He wanted to make it to celebrate 25 years with the love of his life. That shows his priorities. And I know just as your son has his arm around you, he'll have his arm around you also on the 22nd. And on Christmas Day and on those coming days. Another thing about Dennis, you know, he was very good at what he did. You know, working with machine shop, making things, excellent with his hands. But not only that, not only was he very skilled, very smart and brave. Stepping out to start your own business, that takes a lot of guts. Because, you know, when you do that, it's just no guarantee. But he did it. He did very well at it. Made a lot of money at it. And it's amazing, isn't it, how Dennis and his wife were able to work together. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody could do that, but he was just scared enough of you, Kimberly, that you guys could do that together. By the way, Joe, I talked to your husband's friend Joe, who's also known him for many years. He said at first, when I saw that long hair, and he comes across at first, you know, just a little bit intimidated. I was a little scared of him, Joe said. You know, I just knew I wasn't going to mess with him. You know, but you know what? I bet you he was just as scared of you, Kimberly. That's why it took him so long. You know, he probably walked by you at the apartment where you lived together so many times, just said hi and kept marching, you know. Took a while. But I love your story, Kimberly. It kind of shows your relationship, how on a stressful day at work with things, you know, I'm sure your husband was a little overwhelmed with what was going on, and he came to your office chewing you out about something, and you said, hey, don't you be coming to my office chewing me out. Call me to your office. So he goes back to his office, calls up Kimberly, and she says, you know, I'm a little busy right now. I love that. So you kept him straight, and I'm sure you did so much for his life. You made such a difference, and I'm sure Stephanie and Dennis, you made a huge difference in your dad's life. Huge difference. His life wouldn't have had near the meaning without you as kids. Being blessed with an awesome son, you know, and how could you say no to all the logic behind naming him Dennis? I mean, you had no chance, Kimberly, did you? The way he put together the package, he's so logical, just no way you could say no. Had to be Dennis. I bet you your husband was so thrilled when this beautiful daughter was born. Isn't she cute, Brandon? Yes, absolutely. I know we got plenty of time here, but I can't help but tease you. One of these days we're going to get some grandkids. I don't know what it's going to take, but we'll get her done. And it's great, Dennis, that you can carry on your dad's name. That means something. Every time you sign your name, every time you see your name, you're going to think of your dad. And I know from what I've heard, your dad, very proud of you, would want the very best for you in your life and every aspect of your life. And you too, Stephanie. And I know no guy better even think about messing with you. Right, Brandon? Absolutely. Dad's still not around, but he's still around, and I know he'll always be in your hearts. I like what one of you wrote. I took a couple of the cards from the flowers. And which one's Kathy? Kathy, thank you. Kathy and Amber. This your mom, Amber? Wonderful. Well, you have a great daughter here, and some pretty cool grandkids back there too, don't you? Absolutely. He was quite an uncle, wasn't he? But I like what you wrote here. Dennis will always live on forever in our hearts and our minds. Love always. Kathy, Amber, Alex, Jake, and Andrea. Those are the two grandsons, and then, yeah. Okay. Did you guys ever try to pull any schemes with your cousins here? Not really? You knew better. I'd like to read a verse that made me think of You know, when I read this, how Dennis will live on in your hearts forever, there's a beautiful verse in the book of Romans. And again, it makes no sense saying goodbye to him so young, but I love this verse. It just says in Romans, nothing will separate us from the love of God. Nothing. Life, death, nothing separates us from God's love. And in a sense, you'll never be separated from His love. Dennis will always live on forever in our hearts and minds. Your dad will always love you, Stephanie. Want the best for you, Dennis. And I know he'll always love you, Kimberly. The love of his life. You said that about him. I imagine he'd say the same about you. You know, Dennis, he was definitely a character at work. You know, I'm a Yankee, so I've known a few Yankees, and I'm not sure if it's a Yankee thing, but both Kenny and Joe did refer to him as a Yankee. You know, being from New Jersey and all, and some of the things he did. But they both emphasized how, for one, and you said it as well, Dennis, your dad was a worker. He was not a slacker. He was a worker. Probably hard for you to be a slacker hanging around a dad like that, especially with a mom that's the same way and just as bad. But they both said he was a worker, and to illustrate that, Kenny shared how Dennis was given a beeper, a pager, and was told to delegate and all that. What does Dennis do with that pager? He left it. He left it at work. He said, I'm not going to call someone to do something I can do myself. So even though he's a leader and he could have had the other guys take care of whatever, he said, I can handle that. And I appreciate that. That says a lot right there about somebody. And I like Joe's story. When Joe, his friend of many years, was out of work, I'm sure struggling financially. We all know it can be very stressful when money's tight. But I appreciate how your husband worked with Joe, gave him a job, wasn't full-time, but said that probably in 2 years he probably made like $60,000 and kept Joe and his family going for that duration. I like that. So these guys had a lot of good, and they live a long ways away, or I'm sure they would absolutely be here for sure. I like also the blunt side. This really illustrated the blunt side of Dennis. Some of you will understand this, maybe already know this story, but understand they were out fishing together, having a great time, and some guy came up and first asked Kenny, do you have an extra beer there? Kenny said, well, it's Dennis's beer. So then he says, Dennis, you have an extra beer there? So, well, we just not brought enough for us. In other words, not just Mr. Nice Guy, not a doormat, and not taken advantage of easily. And I'm sure those were characteristics that helped him in business. To run your own business, you need to be sharp, because people at times will take advantage of you and try to just slip in something on you. But you know that your dad wasn't easy to pull any wool over his eyes, was he? Yeah. And I like also how you got a welder just for Joe, and you named the welder Joe. Little things like that out of touch. Well, it's another thing that they both said was great. They both, just like Amber, said how much they appreciate and respect you, Kimberly, for letting your husband be at home. Because I know he loved your home. I know he loved being outdoors. I know you guys have an awesome yard. He liked being outside, enjoying the birds, enjoying the weather, just being out there with his laptop, drinking his coffee, enjoying the outside. That's another thing that makes sense for a fellow Yankee. When you live in freezing cold weather like New Jersey, and you can be outside in this kind of weather, pretty sweet. And he enjoyed it. And I think Dennis would want you to continue to enjoy that beautiful yard, the beautiful weather, and what you guys have worked very hard for. Another thing for sure about Dennis, not everyone gets it, but he had tremendous respect, appreciation, and love for our country. Right now with what we see on the news, with some of the tragedies going on, some of the terrorism that we've recently seen, not everyone has the same level of respect for this country. And obviously we have a lot of problems. We're far from perfect, but we have so many awesome things going on here. And right here is a true American that had a lot of respect. You can tell by the red, white, and blue flowers on the casket. But beyond that, he loved watching the news. He was very involved. He really, really cared. You know, that's one thing that you definitely need to carry on. Don't need to necessarily have the same views, but I think that respect for our country is awesome. You know, I've met people that have that, and I met people that don't. And I really appreciate people that have that. Very proud to be an American. Very, very, a bit conservative. Joe said he didn't agree with everything, but they tried to straighten each other out. I love how, some of the things that we've seen recently, we've seen a lot on the news. And we've seen a lot of patriotism. Probably not another person more patriotic. Stephanie, I liked what you said when you said that your dad was a jean-wearing person that in the summertime would always have, a lot of times would have a patriotic shirt on, letting people know his values and where he stood. So if anybody asked him about his shirt, I'm sure he probably had a few things to tell him, wouldn't you say? Yeah. But basically just wanting to put America first. I'm sure your dad would say, you know what, as much as possible, let's keep the jobs here, let's take care of business here, and let's make this country great. So you can see that on the hat if you haven't already seen it. And I agree with a lot of that. I know also he had that tender side, love for animals, love for pets. And what was the name of your favorite pet? Puppy dog. Puppy dog. That's sweet. What did you call your kids when they were first born? Do you ever have any cool names for your kids? Well, you don't need to embarrass Stephanie, especially with Brandon here. I'm sure your dad thought the world of you, Stephanie. What's that? Really? Really? Sorry, Dennis. Okay. Well, there's so many more things we could say about Dennis. We'll say more later. But let's pause. We all need grace today. Dealing with such a huge loss. We're all aware this is a huge tragedy. And we need grace. We need grace. And I appreciate your choice. And let's just take a moment now to listen to the song, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace
we definitely need grace. And along with making you think of Dennis, probably makes you think of a few other people. And it's really special that your husband can be next to your brother, Kimberly, to your son. It's going to make that place even more sacred. And I know we'll be going there, the graveside service later. But I'd just like to now read the obituary, which is just a window, a partial summation of Dennis, his life. It is with great sadness in our hearts to say that our beloved father, husband, and family member, Dennis Needham, 60 years old, passed away on December 9, 2015. Was born on January 5, 1955, in Bayonne, New Jersey, to Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd Needham. He graduated trade school with a certificate in machine shop. He took that knowledge and experience and later started his own business. Dennis was a Class A mold-making genius with a proud IQ of 152. He married the love of his life, Kimberly, on December 22, 1990. They have 2 children, Dennis Jr. and Stephanie Needham. With his knack for mathematics and creating things, Dennis invented a steer, or is that steel? Steer, okay. Wheeled framework, wheelchair attachment for his wife, disabled brother. Was that for David? Being a perfectionist at everything he did, he was granted a patent for this invention on January 25, 1994. Awesome. Dennis enjoyed playing pool and was on the bowling league with his wife for many years. Yeah, he had always enjoyed sitting on the back porch where he fed the birds and appreciated nature. He always kept up with politics and was extremely patriotic. Dennis was also a perfectionist when it came to the kitchen, where he spent countless hours cooking fine dinners for his family. You guys were a bit spoiled, huh? 5-star. Who's going to cook now? Well, I hope that trait went down the generational line a bit, okay? Dennis and Stephanie. He was preceded in death by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd Needham, father-in-law Earl Myers, and brother-in-law David Myers. He is survived by his loving wife, Kimberly, son, Dennis Jr., daughter, Stephanie, mother-in-law, Mary Myers. You're Mary, right? Brother-in-law, Chris Myers. Is Chris here? Sister-in-law, Kathy Chambers, niece, Amber Myers, her children, Alexander San Martin, Jacob San Martin, and Andrea San Martin, and his special puppy dog, Shadow. He's also survived by Charlotte Needham, the Debach family, and many others from back east. I'm sure a lot of others in New Jersey and scattered around Florida and different places. A lot of friends, a lot of people. I'd just like to share a few words. Some of it we've already shared, just starting to sum up with some of the things that Dennis loved. I don't know if Kimberly, if it was Kenny or his friend Joe, but one of them said that Dennis was perhaps the most patriotic person that they had ever met that wasn't in the military. I think it was Kenny that said he would have been an excellent soldier, or he seems like he was a soldier because of his patriotism. So again, he loved our country and extremely patriotic. He loved the United States. Obviously loved his puppy dog, showing his tender side. And I'm glad you still have that puppy dog as a reminder of Dennis. Loved the outdoors. Loved being outside. Loved nature. And he didn't like just being stuck in the house. And I hope you can get out and enjoy it as well. Loved the Bible. He loved to read the Bible. Isn't that great? Loved the Bible. Loved his nephews, his nieces. Had a love for kids. You guys knew you didn't want to mess around with him, but you know he cared. He would want the very best for all of you. Loved rock and roll. Loved lively music. Loved his wife Kimberly. Loved fishing. As we heard, bowling. I bet he liked to win, too. Not only love it, I bet he kind of liked to win, didn't he? Did you beat him? Okay. I bet you would have liked to have beat him, huh? Okay. Very good. Yes. Mm-hmm. He loved El Paso. Loved El Paso. Loved the sunsets. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. He loved his kids. His precious Stephanie. And he loved his son, Dennis. There's a lot of other things about Dennis. I know you'll never forget him. I know you always remember him. There's one of my favorite verses that talks about the love of a dad is Psalm 103. It says, "As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on others. He knows our frame. He knows that we are dust." You know, God knows we're not perfect. We make mistakes. Still loves us. I'm sure even someone as amazing as Stephanie is not quite perfect, right, Brandon? Close. Not quite perfect. But I know your dad loved you very much, Stephanie. And you as well, Dennis. As a father has compassion on his children, so does God have passion on us. Here's a card that his friend, his work buddy, Joe, wrote that was on one of the flowers here. "With my deepest sympathy, Dennis was an important person to me. Was a mentor, always willing to take an extra minute, explain things, help someone out, and give someone an idea or something that might help them in their work and in their life. I know he was even more to all of you. Very, very important." And then I wanted to read one as well from Kenny. "In loving memory of Dennis, Kenny and Lisa Williams." Again, 30 years. That's a long time to have a friend. Friends like that are hard to come by. And I know that Kenny had to work today. He felt, he really wished he could have been here. But Dennis was loved. And for sure, Kimberly, you loved him to the very end. I know you did your very best. I'm sure it was very tiring at times. But you were there, focused 100%. I know he worried. I know you took off work. You planned your life around taking care of your husband. And what's that? He was very lucky. He was very lucky to have you, Kimberly. Very lucky. And I know you were very lucky to have him. And I know you wish you would have had a lot more time than just simply 25 years. Well, I know he was very detail-oriented, a bit perfectionistic, but that enabled him to do what he did, make what he made. Like you said, the little penny, he put a hole so little, no one else would even know the hole's there. So you may find other little reminders of amazing things that your dad did in the future. I know it's going to be some hard days. Thursday, selling his business, selling his shop. It's going to be a lot to process. But I know you're a very strong woman, Kimberly, and I know you're going to be okay. With the support from your kids next to you, your precious mom, your friends. Imagine some of you are neighbors, perhaps, people that worked with Dennis, a lot of friends. And we really appreciate each one of you being here. We appreciate you caring. So in summation, nothing is more important than family. From how important it was, your brother, and how many times, I love how you shared, Kimberly, how she would go to the cemetery where we're going to be going. Many of you may know this, but she took that hose and watered everything she could possibly reach, all the plants and flowers, anything she could find. That shows your deep love and respect for your brother David. And now with your husband there, those plants and flowers are probably going to get even more water and going to be loved and taken care of. So thank you all for your love, your care. And I want to thank God now in closing for making someone like Dennis and giving him to be your family, your friend. Let us pray. Lord, I again just want to say thank you. And I think if Dennis could, he'd want to say thank you to his wife for caring for him, for his kids, for being such wonderful kids. I know he'd want to say thank you to his mother-in-law, his nieces, nephews, his other friends, and the people that are here and those scattered around the country that aren't here. I just pray, God, that you'll take care of Dennis. He's in your hands now. Take care of him, Lord, and bless and take care of his precious wife, Kimberly, of his son, Dennis, his daughter, Stephanie, and everyone here. And I just pray you'll be with him in a special way on the 22nd of December, on Christmas, and in the coming days. So we commit Dennis and his family now to you, we pray. Amen.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me is falling, but he bids me go through the voice of hope. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy